Yo, what is going on guys, Flashverse here and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 8. And for today's video, I'll be breaking down and going over another interview with showrunner Eric Wallace, and this time it is coming from Nerds of Color. And yeah, Eric Wallace talks about some pretty interesting storylines regarding some characters and how they deal with Armageddon. We did also get a final season teaser and just various other cool stuff like that. So be sure to stick around for the whole video to get as much information as possible. And also more exciting than that, The Flash Season 8 returns tomorrow, which is so exciting. And most exciting of all is my review and breakdowns finally returned, because obviously after The Flash Season 8 Episode 1 airs, I will be releasing my Episode 1 review and breakdown, and then I'll be releasing my Episode 2 trailer breakdown, and I'll be releasing some theory videos if necessary as well, so be sure to be on the lookout for those, because I will be jam-packed with some content for you guys to enjoy. And also be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way, especially with us being one day away for the return of The Flash. Okay, so going over this interview. So firstly, going over what Nerds of Color had to say. So the first question I have for you is, what is it like to showrun a show like The Flash, which seems to have so many moving parts, whether it's going at super speed or at regular speed? Then Eric Wallace replies, "What a question. We could talk for an hour about this one question, but I will say showrunning The Flash is like making a Marvel movie every week, or like making a DC or comic book movie every week, with half the time and half the budget, and all the emotion and everything else. So if you're asking me how to run the show, I would say it's the most fun thing I've ever had as a job. But it is by far the most challenging thing I've ever had to do in this industry because of how big the show is, the scale. Sometimes I think when the audience tunes in, they don't realize that we have more visual effects shown in one episode of our show than some shows have in an entire season. And getting that coordination and sometimes failing is so incredible. It's quite a gargantuan task. I feel like sometimes, honestly, I feel like a general. A benevolent general, kind of leading the army, into battle at first and making sure that there are no casualties. A peaceful war at that, and the reward of that is great, because it's incredibly difficult, and it's been even harder during the pandemic, trying to make sure everyone's safe, but also still maintaining the same part human spectacle, same excitement on all levels. It's quite a challenge on a weekly basis, I would say on an hourly basis. And then they respond with, "Absolutely, that's very evident while watching the show." So for the last few seasons, we've seen Barry and Iris go through an incredible amount, but they've recommitted themselves to each other and their love, particularly with renewing their vows at the end of last season. So will we get to see them have more moments this upcoming season to breathe and reflect upon everything they've been through, especially Iris? And Eric Wallace responds, "Yes and no. Yes, in fact in Armageddon Part 1, right out of the gate, we meet them where some time has passed and we find them relaxing and enjoying a time as a couple. It's wonderful. But the title of the story is Armageddon. And because drama demands that conflict happens, and unfortunately for Barry and Iris, Armageddon is the story of Barry's worst day and what that means for his marriage. So boy, are they about to go through. And in these 5 episodes, but I am happy to support. I do like the caveat. Though, don't worry, they're not breaking. Nobody's dying. It's all going to be fine. It's going to be a wild ride, of course." So yeah, as Grant Gustin did say in the previous interview, which I went over in the previous video, Barry and Iris are in a good place at the start of Season 8. We will be having some sort of a time jump with the future kid going back to the future, so it's just Barry and Iris in their house, basically. They're all alone. Nora and Bart are not around. And we will be having these romantic scenes between Barry and Iris as like the opening for Season 8. But sadly for the couple, that does get intervened when the Royal Flush Gang decides to show up. But yeah, obviously the arrival of Despero as well as the upcoming Armageddon will put this massive sword hanging over Barry's neck, and Barry will be struggling with the impending Armageddon, so I'm really looking forward to see how that all plays out for Barry and Iris as a couple. And then they respond, "Well, thank you for the reassurance, I appreciate it. So more about Iris. Will we get to see her build up more of the Central City citizen in Season 8 and maybe recruit some more journalist staff? And Eric Wells responds, yeah, you're going to see Iris on a whole new level. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give away because of spoilers, but we're going to see Iris in Season 8 at the top of her game. And it's so exciting, and I've been waiting 3 years to get to where we finally are this season with Iris. That Pulitzer is right in reach now, and it's so exciting, and I think the Iris West Allen fans are in just for a delight. Now, this is one of my many issues I have with Eric Wallace, and that is just simply, he hates Barry. He hates Barry. He makes Iris look like the main character of the show by giving her these huge stories and utilizes her as a plot device, such as the time sickness stuff, which will be lasting the whole season. It will be a storyline lasting for the whole of Season 8, which is something Barry never gets. Barry, as the main character, never gets enough focus. So hopefully they do step up their game with Barry over Iris this season, because once again, it looks like Iris will be the main character again, which hopefully that doesn't happen because the main character is the Flash. I don't get why we don't get these big storylines for Barry lasting a whole season. If anything, like for Season 7, for example, we got absolutely nothing related to Barry's character. At least we're getting something for Armageddon, but the fact that Iris is getting these big storylines and Barry's barely getting anything is just so frustrating to see. But on the side note, it is great to see that Iris will be working on the Central City citizen for Season 8 as well, because this is where the character always shines, not when she's used as a plot device for things like time sickness or that Savitar stuff for Season 3, but when she actually works on her journalism stuff, then her character works. So I am excited to see what they have in regards to Iris, in regards to her working in the Central City citizen. But then the Nerd of Color respond with, I'm very excited to watch it. So what would you say the theme is of Barry's continuing journey this upcoming season? Because he has also been through a lot. So many losses and so many ups and downs. What can you say is his theme this upcoming season? And Eric Walsh responds, well, I can't tell you that because that would spoil literally what happens in episode 1. But that's very interesting. I think that's a great question. Thank you for that. Episode 1 of Armageddon has to do two things. It has to be part 1 of Armageddon and set up the Despero story arc right, and all the fighting and the villainy and the things that are going to happen in the very first episode. So it has to do that. That's the half of part 1. But part 1 of Armageddon also has to set up the entire Season 8. That's why episode 1 is so challenging. We had to pack quite a bit into it, and what you get into half, that's about setting up the season, is you will learn exactly what the theme of the entire season is. I think it's been a second scene of the episode literally. And the question will be what it means, and we were very explicit about it. And there was a scene between Barry and Caitlin, of all people, very early in part 1. I won't spoil it, but we will be laid out literally Barry's theme and the journey is, and then in the second half of part 1, you will see how it actually ties into the appearance of Despero and why there's a fight going on and why Armageddon is impending. So as I said in my previous point, it will be interesting to see how they handle Barry this season, just due to the lack of focus he had for season 7. Obviously, Armageddon itself will be an event which has really high stakes and intense scenes, and obviously a very powerful villain which will push Barry even further. Even with his speed boost which he had during the end of season 7, he has to have that bigger push. And with Barry being the main cause of Armageddon, as we found out from the synopsis, it will be interesting to see how he copes with that and what he tries to do to prove Despero wrong. But yeah, Armageddon does indeed look like a big storyline for Barry, and it does look like a storyline which will, develop his character a bit more. But it will be very interesting to see what's planned for him for these first 5 episodes. So on the alien threat in Armageddon, what makes it different from all the other threats Barry and his team have faced? And Eric Wells responds, it's very simple. This is the most intimate cosmic battle ever presented. I think in the entire Arrowverse. We couldn't do a crossover. I want to remind folks, Armageddon is not a crossover. Well, sorry to break it to you, but it is. And then he continues on to say, it's a 5-part special event. What that means is in crossovers, they are all centered around 3 people, Barry, Kara, and Oliver. And they were kind of scattered all over 5 existing Arrowverse shows. Batwoman was about to join us too. This is not a crossover. This is a 5-part Flash storyline that's slightly bigger, that steeps into Barry's emotions. This is really Barry's worst day, and we're getting deeper into his journey and how it affects Iris and how it affects their marriage together. While ironically, you've got a space alien with cosmic repercussions of what's happening, and the whole world could literally be destroyed. But the way we're telling it, I could use the example of the film Cloverfield film that I love very much. There was this big monster attacking the city the whole time, but it was really told in a small, intimate way as a search for a couple to reignite. That, I think, is the analogy that I want folks to kind of understand is the approach that we're going to take for Armageddon. Because with the pandemic still upon us, we can't do the amounts of extremes that we usually do. We can't have a scene with 20 superheroes all in the same scene standing next to each other. It's a space you have to socially distance. There's no math and all these sorts of things. So what we have to do is find a different way to tell a positive story. That meant we had to go inward, not outward. So I think this is one of Barry's most personal crises yet. I'm going to say this again, Eric Wallace. I have no idea why you can't accept it, but this is a crossover. It's not a special event. Well, technically, yes, it is a special event, but you call it a crossover. The literal term for it is a crossover. You are having characters like Batwoman, Mia Queen, Alex Danvers, Black Lightning, The Atom, and Ryan Choi, who are all characters part of the Arrowverse, but have nothing to do with the Flash besides the Arrowverse connection. They are simply guest stars from other shows, which are essentially crossing over onto another show. Yes, the storyline is only centered around the Flash, but it is still a crossover. The only difference is it's not split across the shows, it's just a Flash storyline. But it is a crossover because we're having characters from outside the show guest starring onto the Flash. I am really looking forward to Despero as the main villain for this event, saying that he is more powerful than the typical villains we would normally have on the show, and the upcoming Armageddon can really raise the bar in terms of stakes, and it could make things intense. So yeah, that is very exciting as well. And then the Nerds of Color respond, wow, as though he hasn't had enough of those already. But yeah, I am sorry. Yeah, I love Barry. I just want to make sure he's okay. But I guess if that happened, there would be no Flash TV show. And then Eric Wallace responds, that's right, don't worry. Again, nobody's dying in Armageddon. So that's a confirmation that literally nobody's going to die. But then Eric Wallace continues on to say, Barry and Iris are going to be fine. I don't want you to worry. It's going to be okay. It's going to get close. Because that's part of the drama. It's going to look pretty to die there around part 4. And then the Nerds of Color respond, I appreciate the reassurance. So Armageddon is going to have some fantastic guest stars from across the Arrowverse, including Batwoman, The Atom, Black Lightning, and Sentinel, and others. So what can you tease for fans about what interactions they should be most excited for? And then Eric Wallace responds, a couple of things. One is, I won't tell you what episode this is in, but 2 characters that I personally and I think the audience to have been waiting to meet finally in this universe. Finally, they're going to meet and interact with each other and be part of a story, and that is Iris and Batwoman. Finally, these 2 wonderful and powerful black women are going to come together at last and have a real moment. I can't tell you how excited I am. I will also say that when we are kind of looking at what guest stars to put on the show, there were 2 guest stars who, before I made any other decisions, were absolutely integral to the story that we're trying to tell because of the way they relate to Barry and Iris' emotional journey. Armageddon, again, it's cosmic, but we have to tell that from a deep interior place and visualize it in that way. So it's a very special kind of emotional story. And those 2 characters were Black Lightning and Batwoman. They were the first 2 people I knew I had to get on this job in order to make the story work. And I'm happy to report that it all worked out, even better than I imagined. The scenes between Grant and Cress, which we saw a little bit in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, now they get to go to the next level, and they're fantastic together. And again, I won't tell you when Javicia and Candice got together, but they're friends off camera, and that chemistry translated to the screen, and it's magic. That's all I can say. It's magic. So yeah, this does get me pretty excited in regards to these, interactions which we're supposed to have between the characters. One of the scenes that I am most looking forward to is the scene with the Flash and Black Lightning in the Hall of Justice, which was the scene we saw in the trailer, which it looks like we had a really great talk between those two characters, where Black Lightning seemed to be giving Barry that, like, mentor role, and he, like, pep talks him about the struggles and stuff. And we had that whole scene in the trailer where he's like, where's the future? And Barry responds, right here. I cannot wait to see that talk, because that one looks really, really great. I'm really also excited to see the scenes between Mia and Barry. Maybe they could share some struggles about Oliver Queen. I don't know, that would just be pretty cool to see. I just love that we're getting a version of the Green Arrow showing up for a crossover, and I really like that Barry and Mia will be interacting for this crossover. The interactions between Batwoman and Iris seem pretty interesting as well, so I'm very excited to see what that's all about. But then moving on to the last question. At the end of last season, fans were pretty surprised to see Bart, aka the Reverse Flash, return, helping Barry take down all the Godspeeds. So will he be more of a presence this season to build up to a showdown with Barry, and what might be different about his motivations this time besides his typical absolute hatred of Barry? And Eric Wallace responds, well, that's a huge spoiler, I can't reveal that. Let me say that we all know a final confrontation between the Flash and Reverse Flash has been brewing since season 1. We're going to get a little closer down that road, because if you recall, at the end of last season, the Flash got faster, and that did not make Bart very happy at all. The question is, what's Bart going to do about it, right? And how does that fit into Despero's agenda? That's what I got to leave you with, because I don't want to ruin Armageddon. It's wild stuff. So yeah, this is what I would say is a teaser for the final season of the show, since Eric Wallace did say that they're getting closer and closer to that road with a final showdown between the Flash and the Reverse Flash. You cannot do a final season without having that final showdown between those two characters. It does lead me to believe that the final season is nearby, and does lead me to believe that it will be season 9. Obviously, I could be totally wrong about that, and I could be taking this totally out of context, but I think that the final season will be season 9, where we will actually have Reverse Flash as the main villain once again. Obviously, Reverse Flash has to be the main villain for everything to come full circle. We're gonna have to have Matt Letcher's Bart return if we're gonna have like a young Bart, and obviously we're gonna have to have Tom Cavanagh's Bart return as well to have the present day Bart we have. And I can't wait to see how Bart fits into Armageddon as well, and also what he has done so that he could match with Barry's speed after the speed boost. And also I can't wait to see what's planned for Bart for the future of the show. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below what you're most excited to see for the first 5 episodes of season 8. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.